Hello YouTube. In this mini-series, I'm going to give some basic advice on how to make the case against the normalization of prostitution and for the abolition of the sex industry. As someone who used to believe in legalization and happy, safe, consensual sex work, I know for a fact that it's possible to do a 180 on this issue. The list of arguments I'm going to present has helped change my own mind and those of people whom I've argued with in the past, and while it's not guaranteed to help you do the same, it just may. The list is by no means exhaustive, so if you feel I forgot something important, please comment and share your thoughts. Before we start, I want to briefly go over some general advice on when and how to pick your fights in this debate. If you're not interested in that and want to get right down to arguing the debate, skip this video and watch the next one in the playlist. So, even fairly casual discussions of this topic can get quite heated as opinions clash, so let's start by laying down some basics that improve your chances of a productive discussion, which people walk away from reconsidering their positions rather than just feeling angry or offended. Make really sure your opponent wants to actually have the discussion. This might seem very basic, but let me emphasize this briefly. Do not push this conversation on people who express no interest in it or aversion to the topic. Prostitution is an issue that makes many people uncomfortable, and there are valid reasons for not wanting to discuss it. The person you're trying to debate may be a survivor of sexual assault or even prostitution themselves, and have a whole host of reasons why they're not prepared to debate the issue. The obvious exception is holding accountable prostitution consumers, legislators, and our representatives of human rights organizations who refuse to address the issue, even though they have power over changing the political climate or even a country's or state's laws. Don't try discussing it all at once. Take your time. I have a hard time with this one because I always want to make all my points all at once, and you can't. If you want to pull someone firmly to the abolitionist side, you need to give them time. An in-depth understanding of the sex industry does not come overnight, and there are few in this debate who haven't spent extended periods of time doubting or even going back and forth between positions. When it comes to debating this issue in your private or political sphere amongst equals, I recommend gently feeding them information to challenge their view over an elongated time span, rather than trying to get it all out at once. I personally have had the best result convincing friends or acquaintances by gently giving them bits of new information over the course of months or even years. It is soul-crushing to attempt to see, understand, and emotionally comprehend the reality of the sex industry all at once, especially if you're female. So don't start by arguing that prostitution is rape. As true as I and you believe that statement to be, for someone new to the debate, there needs to be a lot more groundwork done first. And if you do it well, conclusions like the one I mentioned will be conclusions that they themselves arrive at naturally. I've seen it happen. Always assume the other side has good intentions. No matter whom you're talking to, friend, partner, family members, or political opponent, always assume that the position they're coming from is one of genuine care for the situation of prostituted people. The exceptions are, of course, obvious misogynists, punters, prostitution profiteers. In their cases, you should absolutely discuss their anti-woman views, their sexual entitlement, and their profit interests. But most discussions you're likely to have are with people who have assumed a pro-sex industry or pro-legalization position, believing genuinely that this is the best way to keep prostituted people safe. You have nothing to gain from accusing them of upholding patriarchy, being handmaidens, etc. By antagonizing an opponent like that, you do nothing but increase tensions and bad faith from their side as well. If your opponent feels attacked, they're in fact more likely to persist in their position rather than to change it. Respect all prostituted people regardless of political position. It is especially important to argue in good faith when talking to women still in the industry or who have exited and now campaign for legalization. Never ever blame prostituted or exited women for the existence or the violence of the industry. Remember always that those who hold the power in the industry are the buyers and profiteers, and women defending what they perceive to be their livelihood are not at all equivalent to pimps arguing for their right to profit off of others. By demonizing, shaming, or blaming formerly or currently prostitute women for the violence in the industry, you increase their aversion to talking to any abolitionist, prostitution critic, and in a worst-case scenario, even exit services, should they wish to exit someday. Being a feminist and a prostitution abolitionist means solidarity with all women in the industry and all that have exited, regardless of their political convictions. Attack the political views, never the person. Maybe you can't convince your opponent, but someone else listening in. Often enough, the goal of a debate is not to convince your opponent, but those listening. Even if the person arguing the pro-sex industry position remains unshaken in their views and convictions, you might plant doubts in the mind of listeners and anyone on the fence. I found myself debating a person for an extended period of time, failing to convince them, but then having someone else who had been listening in come up to me later and tell me that I changed their perspective. When it comes to prostitution, you can be almost certain that if a group of people is listening, there will be someone on the fence.